Hello, fellow residents of Earth. Come on in here at the library at Horror Hotel and let's have another little creepy cheapies visit where we discuss and acknowledge and appreciate and celebrate and examine the fine art of monster masks. Now, I don't like to, open on a negative note. It's probably not a good idea to start out a video on a negative note. I don't like to do that normally. Well, I don't like to do anything normally if I can help it, come to think of it. But ladies and gentlemen, I think I got sold a bootleg mask. I do. Yeah, no, wow, I felt that. Like 65 people out there just now. I felt your little synapses firing in your brain. 65 people all at the same time just now thought, oh, I know what he's gonna do. He said bootleg. He's gonna hold up a boot with a leg in it and say it's a bootleg, and it's going to be, a sight gag, visual humor, prop comedy kind of thing. That's what he's going to do, but no, nothing that frivolous. Listen, just here's a little word of advice, little word to the wise, or to the stupid, anybody, come on in. Word to the wise, little advice, little word of caution, you might say. If you're an old hand at this kind of thing, then I don't need to tell you about the dangers and risks and, the pratfalls of buying things online. It's the same as back in the old days, buying things through mail order. They always used to say, don't buy a pig dancing a polka, and that's where we get the expression caveat excelsior. Yeah, which means they don't put enough excelsior in the package and then the item you bought is broken. No, but if you didn't know, just for those who are, newcomers to this, if you didn't know, just as there is counterfeit money, counterfeit coins, counterfeit art, fake art that's supposed to be by a famous artist, but it's actually an imitation, just as there are knockoffs, what they call knockoffs, imitations of designer purses, handbags, jewelry, shoes, suits, all the expensive goods, watches. There are knockoffs, which is the term for unscrupulous criminals, duplications of things that are then sold, misrepresented to be by the original designers and producers and creators of the goods, just like money that is counterfeit. Well, there are counterfeit masks too, and we call those bootlegs or recasts or knockoffs. It can be. Now, making copies of masks sometimes is okay. It kind of depends on why you're doing it and how many there are and whose permission you have and et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes it happens. But there are those cases when people will try to pass off a copy of something as an original. And you might be thinking you're getting, say for example, a Don Post Frankenstein from 1983, and you think it's actually that mask, and then when you get it, you think, one way you might be able to tell it's fake is you're like, it's a little small. It's a little too small to wear, and you think, I bet they wouldn't have sold this as a wearable mask back then. I think it's a little small. It's possible it's a bootleg because masks tend to shrink just a little bit as they dry. They pull away from the mold. So when you mold a mask, it stands to reason that when the mold you made it from is going to be result in slightly smaller copies because you're going to be molding a copy which is slightly smaller than the mold from which it came. So you see, one of the ways you can usually identify a recast mask is if it looks a little small to you, if it looks too small compared to the way it looked in the movie. And I don't know, I don't like to accuse anybody of anything. Maybe it's just me, but you be the judge here. Here it is, but I have it on this wall hanger. It seems to me that when I look at still photographs from the movie, that the original Wilson used in Castaway was a little bit bigger than this. It looks a little bigger to me, don't you think? It just, see, it's a nice round shape, but I'm thinking when you put that on display, see, it looks a little smaller than the real. Well, by the way, this wall hanger was made by a guy named Brian Mattingly, who used to have a website called Mattingly's Monsters, and I don't think he does anymore, but we miss him. He should come back. He made these wall hangers that you put your, but see, that's too small for the, anyway, speaking of things that might be a little smaller than you'd expect monster-wise, today's mask, now bear with me, now there's not a bear with me, but hang on, I know some of you are going to be all like, oh, what's wrong with him? Why is he talking about, that's not a big, you know, beautiful work of art collector's item kind of, I know, but please, hear me out, okay? You've got nothing better to do today. Now, you know you weren't going to do anything really important in the next roughly 6 minutes and 40 seconds, so stay with me and hear me out on this one. Hear me out. The reason I recommend this mask is not because it's beautifully detailed and exquisitely painted with all the you know, all the fabulous attention to texturing or anything like that. It's just a plain old mask, but it certainly encapsulates its character and it lives up to its name, I think. And let's see, how do we display it? Let's just reach down here and, yeah, we'll use this. We'll put it on this, one of these fine quality, the genuine Mask Fest drink cup, okay, designed by me, by the way, some years ago, which we can also turn over and then have the genuine Mask Fest economy mask stand. See, it's a 2-for-1 product, sort of like multitasking, only it's multi-masking. Anyway, the mask in question is this little guy, Classic Dracula. Yes, it's called Classic Dracula, and I know what you're thinking. What else could I be watching right now? But the rest of you are thinking, well, that doesn't look like, you know, Bela Lugosi or Christopher Lee or anybody. Why is that a Classic Dracula? Well, if the reason I like this mask so much is basically that if I had had one when I was a kid, it would have made me happy. This mask would have made, I would have loved this thing. It just would have made me happy because it so looks like a classic Dracula, an image of what everybody thinks Dracula would look like. And no, it doesn't bear a very specific or exact likeness to any particular actor, such as Bela Lugosi, who is the guy who really defined forever and ever afterward what Dracula would look like. It doesn't really look like him, but it has just the right characteristics of a classic Dracula. It's a little bit weird of a color. I don't know if you can tell. It's a super, super pale greenish, almost pale greenish blue with a little bit of purple going on, but it's a nicely neutral, dead and creepy and unhealthy looking, but not too outlandish or garish or anything, sort of a color. And then it's got the 2 little fangs and the blood. And no, back in the classy days of movies, they didn't usually show the blood on the mouth of Dracula or the other vampires. But when you're a kid, you know that that's what Dracula does, is he drinks blood and he has 2 little sharp fangs and he might have blood on there. So this looks right. So back in my misspent youth, I had many a mask that I loved that did not represent a very specific likeness of a certain actor or anything, but if it had a lot of hair and big scary teeth, usually a dark nose, it was a cool werewolf or wolf man. And if it had a big square forehead and electrodes or neck bolts sticking out and clamps on the head, maybe stitches and such, that was Frankenstein. And there was a whole series of masks, the 800 line masks from Don Post Studios way back in the day. Those were great likenesses that were kind of genericized versions of classic monsters, but they had that certain something. They had that character to them. And a lot of other masks that I used to have when I was still alive that I liked a lot that you can't find anymore and that I wish I still had. I had a couple of Don Post hunchback masks, one sculpted by David Ayers and the other one I think was a Bill Malone sculpture called Quasimodo. They were both really Quasimodo, but I think they called the first one just Hunchback, and then I think they called the second one Quasimodo. Well, anyway, a couple of good Quasimodo masks. I had a great Mr. Hyde mask from Don Post Studios that I thought was just awesome, but it didn't look like any particular actor in the makeup. It was just a Mr. Hyde, and that's the kind of Dracula Classic Dracula is here. Now, this is kind of small, as you can probably tell. I could get it on my head and wear it if I wanted to, which is nice because it's tight fitting and it would look kind of like a real face, which is one of the issues some people have with Dracula masks is I've heard monster fans say, Dracula, he just looks like a man. in a cape, and they would rather have a mask of a monster with big horns and spikes and weird things sticking out of it, or something really dramatic like Wolfman or the Mummy, or something that's more creepy. But, and I understand that, yeah, Dracula looks more like a human and less like a bizarre monster, but I would submit that in a way, if you're going to actually use the mask to scare people at Halloween at the haunted house or something, the human masks might be creepier, because if people see me in a mask that looks like Creature from the Black Lagoon, yeah, I can jump out and scare them and go rah and, startle them, but they're probably going to figure out that I'm a guy in a rubber mask of the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Whereas if they just get a glimpse of something more like this in the low light, in kind of a darker situation, or off in the distance, or just a very quick glimpse of it, you might think, was that a guy's real face? That could have been a real person back there. So that's one of the reasons, like, Michael Myers masks are scary, and some of those human-looking masks have that uncanny valley quality where they look a little bit creepy. But I think the Ghoulish Productions Classic Dracula, which came out, I think, in 2020, so it's been around for a while. The Ghoulish Productions Little Classic Dracula here, very economical. I've seen these as high as $60, but that's too much. I've seen them as low as $20, which is pretty amazing, and I've seen them for $30, which I believe is pretty much the manufacturer's suggested retail price on your Classic Dracula from Ghoulish Productions. Now, I don't think these were ever on the Ghoulish Productions website. You could only get them at the seasonal Halloween stores, and they would usually have the little, the hang tag with the two little plastic annoyances coming up out of it to hold, so they would just put them on a peg. But again, not likely to be anybody's favorite, expensive, it's a masterpiece of beautiful sculptural art. I know, but just consider what a classic, old school, iconic Dracula this is. It just looks like everything that you think of when you think of Dracula, the character, rather than a specific movie version of Dracula. And again, if I would have had one of these when I was a kid, I would have loved it. There weren't a lot of great Dracula masks out there back then. There were a lot of good Frankenstein and Quasimodo and Wolfman and Creature. There were a lot of good monster masks. Not that many good Draculas, as I recall from my misspent youth. But if I would have had one of these, you just know I would have had fun. My friends would have had fun. I would have been like wearing this, going around, sneaking around, scaring people with it at Halloween, or maybe Mother's Day, frightening the elderly and having fun. And there would have been all sorts of capers and laughter and police presence and all the things that make childhood fun. And if you want to go a little more deluxe with him, one advantage I have is that I'm very blessed to be married to Laura, who looks at these things with painted on hair and molded hair, and she thinks, I wonder what that would look like with real hair. And of course I always am like, go for it. Yeah, let's see one with real hair. So I have one haired by Laura. I think I bought about half a dozen of these, and Laura put real hair on them, and they went to other collectors. But here's one that I kept. Look at how cool this mask is when you cover the painted, molded hair. Should I have these in this order? Would this be better for you? Do you prefer this? Yeah, for those of you who are right-handed. I don't know. It was a right-handed compliment there, Drac. Look at how cool. Okay? And the other thing is I just did a little tiny bit of customizing to the paint on this one. It's not repainted. It looked pretty much like this. I forget. What did I do? Let's see. Oh, I put shiny stuff on the lips. That's right. I made the lips shiny because the lips are not really shiny on this one. But as far as the main color and the blood placement and all that, they are, the way it came. There's a little variance from mask to mask, but he does generally have this pale greenish thing going on with a little bit of purple here and there in the shadows. But look what a great piece it is when you see it with real hair. It really comes to life then, and as much as you would want it to anyway, because it doesn't actually bite you, which is what would happen if it really came to life. But anyway, $30 or so you can get, and you can still get these. People sell them online, and I imagine the seasonal Halloween stores will have them again next October because it's a pretty hot mask. there you go, the Ghoulish Productions Classic Dracula. And that's your recommended mask for this week. And oh look, here's one of those giant skeletons that's as tall as a house, only I bought it on Amazon, sight unseen, and it looked like this. See, that's one of the, well, to be fair, I did order it from a seller in Lilliput,